Hey, guess what? So Syria is back in the Arab League after 12 years. So they finally gave up trying to overthrow Syria. So Syria wanted to overthrow Syria because they wanted to put a pipeline through Syria. That's what this was all about. That's what it's all about. They wanted to take it, and so they didn't want Russia selling his oil. That's what the Ukraine war is about. They didn't want Russia selling their pipeline, their gas, their energy to Europe. They wanted to get it from Saudi Arabia. They wanted to put a pipeline through Syria. But now they've all given up on trying to overthrow because Russia's not going to let it happen. Russia stepped in, and they're not going to let Syria be overthrown. So the United States lost. We overthrew Iraq. We overthrew Libya. We overthrew Afghanistan. We're doing a genocide in Yemen, Ukraine, but in Syria, we didn't do it. We didn't overthrow their president. We overthrew the Ukraine's president. So foreign ministers from Arab League member states have agreed to reinstate Syria's membership after its suspension more than 10 years ago. So you know that was all done at the behest of the petrodollar. The ministers voted for Syria's return into the fold at the Arab League's headquarters in Cairo on Sunday. The decision was made in advance of the Arab League summit in Saudi Arabia on May 19th and amid a flurry of regional normalization of ties with Damascus in recent weeks. Now, you know the United States doesn't want this. They're not happy with this. You know that. Syria's Arab League membership was revoked after President Bashar al-Assad ordered a crackdown on protesters in March 2011 that spiraled the country into a civil war that has since killed. That's not what happened. Al Jazeera is, of course, they not telling you the truth. What happened was the CIA backed a civil war in Syria, and they disguised it as the Arab Spring. So that's what happened. As al-Assad solidified his control of the Syrian territory, Arab states have been looking to normalize ties, working towards an Arab-led political path in solving the crisis. Jordan's top diplomat said, according to the Associated Press, the restoration of ties with Damascus quickened pace followed the deadly February 6 earthquake in Turkey and Syria, and the Chinese brokered reestablishment of ties between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which had backed opposing sides in the Syrian conflict. Opposition groups have criticized the ties being normalized with Damascus, but the Arab bloc said it was the way forward. While Saudi Arabia has long resisted normalizing relations with Assad, Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud visited Damascus last month for the first time in more than a decade, and the two countries are also restoring embassies and flights between them. Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi also visited Damascus last week, signing long-term. So that's a big deal. So it's all over. The United States fomented a civil war. We got in bed with Al-Qaeda. We were paying and arming Al-Qaeda.
Well, they changed their name. They did that for us.
They changed their name to Al-Nusra.
Now we get along great.
Yeah. But they failed. Jordan, Kuwait, and Qatar had opposed al-Assad's presence at the Arab League summit, saying an invitation before Damascus agrees to negotiate a peace plan would be premature. Meanwhile, the United States has said it will not change its policy towards the Syrian government, deeming it a rogue state and urging Arab states to get something in return for engaging with al-Assad. Whereas Syria is officially back in the Arab League after prevailing against a global terror war to overthrow its government for over a decade. Condolences to Israel, U.S., and the U.K. for miserably failing to regionally isolate post-victory Syria. The Syrian war is almost over.
How do we keep losing these things to much smaller countries?
Because we're evil, and it's against what the people want.
Yeah.
This China welcomes and congratulates Syria on its return to the Arab League. As a true friend of Syria and the other Arab states, China welcomes and supports Arab solidarity and will continue to contribute to that through our tireless efforts. So China's on board, but America still wants a civil war. America still wants war. China doesn't. Russia doesn't. You know who does? The United States. The Arab League's unanimously adopted a resolution to lift the freeze of Syria's membership. It requests all foreign forces, including the United States troops and mercenaries, malicious terrorists, to leave Syria. I don't know if you remember, but we are occupying, the United States' military is occupying a third of Syria. As we say that Putin is a bad guy for invading Ukraine, We are occupying a third of another country uninvited. And which third of that country? It's the oil third. And why are we there? So we can steal their oil, which we are currently doing. Peter Ford says the Arab League countries had been deceived by the United States in 2011 to oust Syria. Yes, they have been. Peter Ford, he's a British diplomat who served as the UK ambassador to Syria from 2003 to 2006. And here's what he says.
They had been deceived by the United States, which was telling them that, according to US intelligence, the Assad government was bound to fall. It was just a matter of time. And the Arab states, or many of them, thought that they would join the US push to overthrow the government of Syria. Some of them, let's not forget, also were supporting very actively, some of the Gulf countries particularly were supporting the armed opposition groups. So they wanted to isolate Syria anyway. But a big factor was the US pressure on Arab states.
So, Mr. Ford, do you believe that Bashar al-Assad's, let's say, the way he has solidified his position in Syria is the reason why these Arab countries are turning back towards Syria?
That's a big part of the reason, but there are other factors in play. It's very interesting. Now we're seeing the Arab world led particularly by Saudi Arabia in a new partnership with Cairo, more defiant towards America, no longer prepared to be dictated to by the United States. Believe me, this development is a bitter blow for the United States. They tried to pressure countries like Jordan, weaker countries, not to join in the consensus, but this failed. This year, partly as a result of the geopolitical situation with Ukraine, partly because of general U.S. weakness and failure from Afghanistan through Ukraine and their China policy. The Arab countries are more ready to be independent.
Wow, that's wow. Okay, so the United States tried to pressure the Arab countries, Jordan, places like that, and they just flipped us off.
Hey, maybe we should have borrowed that gay rainbow flags and told them to fly it at their soccer game.
Yeah.
It sounds like they took it kind of wrong.
So how is the United States responding to Syria being invited back into the Arab League? Well, House hawks urge Biden to use sanctions. They won't stop this. The whole world, like 30% of the world is under U.S. sanctions right now.
30% is canceled. That's what the cancel culture. It's sanctions. Deplatforming is sanctions.
So we're doing that. The only reason why we can do that is because the U.S. dollar is the reserve currency of the world. That's now going away. Why? Because we keep doing shit like this, and because the United States military has been blowing up the world for the last 25, 30 years non-stop. That's why. And so, they want to keep doing it. Sanctions are an act of war, and they want to keep doing it. That's all they know. Why? Because they don't work for the people. They work for corporations who make money off sanctions and war. Okay. The top Republican and Democrat on the House, so when it's bipartisan, there's an extra big screwing coming your way, as George Carlin said, and here it is. The top Republican and Democrat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee released a statement on Monday slamming Syria's readmission. What? Into
readmission.
What is that?
Readmission.
Readmission. Oh, shouldn't there be a hyphen?
No.
Readmission into the Arab League and urging President Biden to use sanctions to prevent further normalization. Readmitting Assad into the Arab League is a grave strategic mistake that will embolden. They all sound like George Bush and Dick Cheney, don't they? They're going to embolden Assad. You're going to embolden. Embolden? No, he's going to get back into normal relations. Assad didn't want a war. He didn't start a war. You did. Embolden.
To continue butchering civilians. Right. Is that what he does?
And he's the one destabilizing the Middle East.
Son of a bitch. It was all stable.
It was all...
He's destabilizing the Middle East? Are you kidding?
Remember how we stabilized it? And then he came along and destabilized it. The United States must fully enforce the Caesar Act and other sanctions to freeze normal... Hey, do you know what happened to Caesar?
Well, these acts are getting worse, the names.
That's what's happening right now in the United States. Caesar got killed by his own men. Our own allies are now stabbing us because they're sick and tired of this shit. They're sick and tired of the United States being America's bully and blowing up every goddamn country whenever they feel like it. The Caesar Act imposed crushing economic sanctions on Syria in 2020 that are specifically designed to prevent the country's reconstruction. The House recently voted overwhelmingly to keep enforcing sanctions following a devastating earthquake that killed thousands of Syrians. Again, the United States is the terrorists. What makes the Caesar Act sanctions so sweeping is that they allow the United States to sanction any person or entity for doing business with the Syrian government. This means U.S. allies like Saudi Arabia and Jordan, which spearheaded the effort to bring Syria back into the fold, could potentially be targeted.
Will they be? I'm sure.
We're going to sanction Saudi Arabia, are we? On Tuesday, Syria and Saudi Arabia announced that they were reestablishing diplomatic ties for the first time in over 10 years. The State Department has announced Syria's readmission to the Arab, has denounced it, their readmission. We do not believe that Syria merits readmission to the Arab League at this time. We continue to believe that we will not normalize our relations with the Assad regime, and we don't support we want to keep killing people. It's only been 10 years. Can't we keep killing people even though everybody else wants peace? The United States, we've got a bug up our craw, and we are not going to stop.
This couldn't have come at a worse time, Arabs. We're in a thing with Russia.
You guys keep wanting to spread peace. It's not good. On top of the crippling sanctions, the United States has about 900 troops in eastern Syria and backs the Kurdish-led SDF, allowing the United States to control about 1/3 of the country, where most of its oil resources are located. Syria's normalization with its neighbors could complicate the U.S. plans to keep occupying the country. There's no bigger terrorist in the world than the United States. We make Putin look like a Boy Scout. And the only reason you think opposite is because you're propagandized. And that's that.
Putin doesn't even have the power to accomplish the evil.
No.
I'm sure if he had the money and the empire that we have, he could get all kinds of great evil.
But he doesn't.
They're not even close to what we're capable of.
Check out my new stand-up special, COVID Lies Are Funny, at jimmydore.com. Only $10. Become a premium member. We're going to be on tour in Northampton, Massachusetts, Syracuse, Cohoes, New York, Hartford, Los Angeles, Bakersfield, California, Baltimore, Maryland, and San Francisco, California. Plus, did we say Chicago? There's lots of stuff. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. See you there.